everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping straight into a truly fascinating and honestly kind of wild geopolitical risk assessment today. We're going to look at a hypothetical scenario that takes two very real, very volatile forces shaping India right now and smashes them together. On one side, you have this massive viral youth protest movement, and on the other, the super shadowy transnational world of narcoterrorism. So, what actually happens if these two worlds collide? Okay, let's dive right into this. The big core analytical question we're unpacking today is this. What would happen to India's internal security and political stability if a totally genuine grassroots youth movement was covertly hijacked and financed by international drug cartels? We're taking real-world data and geopolitical risk models from our sources to map out exactly how this kind of gray zone warfare could theoretically play out. So here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to hit the youth protest phenomenon first, then map out India's narco-terrorism geography, explore that hypothetical financing nexus, weigh security against democratic freedoms, and wrap up with the political fallout. All right, starting off with Section 1, the youth protest phenomenon. So the CJP movement absolutely exploded onto the scene, and it has a really unique origin story. Basically, after the Chief Justice made some pretty controversial remarks, comparing unemployed youth to parasites and cockroaches, an activist named Abhijit Dipke took that insult and just flipped it into a satirical badge of honor. I mean, the Cockroach Junta Party is one heck of a rebrand, right? They launched with the tagline, "Voice of the Lazy and Unemployed," and the algorithm basically did the rest. The CJP racked up over 22 million Instagram followers in literally just 2 weeks. They eclipsed the ruling party's digital reach almost overnight. But behind all the memes and the viral hashtags, there is a super sobering reality driving this, and it's this number, 40%. According to recent studies, almost 40% of India's graduates under the age of 25 are unemployed. That is a staggering statistic. And it's the very real fuel behind the CJP. This isn't just people messing around on the internet. It's a massive mobilization born from genuine frustration over a really tough job market and some serious systemic irregularities in major exams, like the NEET. Moving on to Section 2, India's narco-terrorism geography. Now, we have to talk about the geographic trap India happens to be sitting in. The Narcotics Control Bureau highlights how India is wedged directly between two of the world's absolute largest illicit opium-producing regions. To the west, you have the Golden Crescent, which covers Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. And to the east, there's the Golden Triangle, where Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand all meet. Being sandwiched right in the middle makes India incredibly vulnerable as both a major transit corridor and a final destination for narcotics. And look, this isn't just a public health crisis. It's a massive national security issue. Historically speaking, drug money is a known, super potent source of militant financing. To put that into perspective, estimates actually show that about 15% of the finances for militant groups in Jammu and Kashmir are generated directly from illegal narcotics. And we've seen similar patterns in Punjab and the Northeast, where insurgent groups have long used drug money to buy weapons and sustain their operations. Basically, narco-terrorism is a well-established playbook in this part of the world. Let's move to Section 3, the hypothetical financing nexus. Now, it is absolutely crucial that we meticulously separate two distinct concepts here. On one hand, we have totally genuine grassroots grievances, millions of young people who are justifiably angry about unemployment and corruption. But on the other hand, we have this concept of gray zone warfare. This is a tactic where hostile foreign actors, instead of declaring an actual conventional war, exploit and covertly finance internal unrest to destabilize a country from the inside out. So the theoretical risk we're analyzing is whether illicit funds could hijack a viral, essentially leaderless movement. Let's break down exactly how this builds into the anatomy of a hybrid threat. Well, following the 2021 military coup, Myanmar saw a massive opium boom, exporting an estimated $2.2 billion in heroin. In our hypothetical scenario, state-sponsored proxies, say Pakistan's ISI, could utilize the proceeds from these eastern and western drug routes. Using untraceable hawala networks, they could funnel that cash right into India. By covertly paying for the logistical needs of a massive viral movement, covering costs for transport, food, or communication networks, they can massively strain India's internal security, all without ever crossing a physical border. Okay, on to Section 4, security versus democratic freedoms. So, how does the Indian government historically respond to perceived foreign funding? Their primary tool is the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, or the FCRA.
The state uses this to basically choke off the financial lifelines of civil society organizations that it suspects might be engaging in this sort of hybrid warfare. We've seen groups like Citizens for Justice and Peace, Greenpeace India, and the Center for Policy Research have their licenses either canceled or revoked. The government stance is that these groups are using foreign funds to stall development, promote disharmony, or fund local protests.
And these regulatory squeezes, they aren't just a slap on the wrist or an administrative thing. They frequently involve direct criminal charges, freezing bank accounts, and even raids by central intelligence agencies like the Central Bureau of Investigation. From the government's viewpoint, they aren't attacking civil society. They're conducting a totally necessary defensive internal security operation to protect India's sovereignty from foreign manipulation. However, as you might expect, this draws severe criticism from the other side. International observers argue that treating all foreign funding as a default security threat is really just a convenient way to silence dissent. In fact, the Civicus Monitor, which is a platform that tracks threats to civil society globally, currently rates India's civic space as outright repressed. They point heavily to these arbitrary FCRA cancellations and the harassment of human rights defenders. It's a really fierce debate over where state defense ends and authoritarianism begins. Finally, let's look at Section 5, the political fallout. The breaking point in our scenario hits on July 20th. This is when the CJP transitions from just being an online phenomenon to a very real, massive physical mobilization. An estimated 20,000 protesters attempt to march on Parliament in New Delhi. The state, which is already viewing this mass mobilization through the lens of internal security risks, responds with immediate force. Protesters face police baton charges and tear gas, which results in widespread injuries and naturally sparks absolute nationwide outrage. So the crucial point here is how this physical clash instantly snowballs into a high-stakes political crisis. The opposition immediately seizes on the July 20 crackdown. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge literally demands the immediate resignation of Home Minister Amit Shah, while the protests also target Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. The narrative shifts at lightning speed, from a debate over youth unemployment to a direct challenge aimed right at the internal security apparatus and the absolute highest levels of the ruling administration. Which brings us to our final thought. As the lines start to blur between genuine citizen protests and the very real threats of transnational narco-financing, a pretty massive challenge emerges. How exactly does a modern democracy protect its national security from invisible, hybrid warfare, while at the exact same time preserving the fundamental democratic right of its citizens to dissent? It's a super delicate high-wire act, and how India navigates it is going to heavily define its future. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this gave you a really clear, structured understanding of a highly complex geopolitical issue. Until next time, keep questioning.